Hey guys, I got a lot of questions on this bracelet, so I'm going to go ahead and show you. So first off, here's what I'm using as my loom. I didn't have a real one available, so I just used a box lid. Anything that's the right size and won't bend and you can wrap your strings around should work. So this is how I started the bracelet. I basically wanted to do a row of knots so that the weaving wouldn't come unraveled when later on I go and take it off. I didn't want it to, yeah, anyway, I just wanted a nice start. So I'm using basically the same technique you'd use for an alpha bracelet. So I'm doing forward knots all the way across. So just one row of those to keep everything secure and just give you a nice start to your bracelet. So you can see I'm going over, under, and through twice on each warp thread. Oh, and by the way, I'm just doing this little demo below the bracelet that I already made just to show you guys. I'm gonna take this off later. It's just for demonstration purposes. And I forgot to mention, I'm using 12 strings in this warp. So the warp are the vertical strings that I'm weaving onto. The weft is the strings that go horizontally. So I'm using 12 strings in this bracelet, but you could use any amount that you feel like you want as far as how, it'll just depend on how wide you want your bracelet. Anyway, so I'm just going to continue going along, making forward knots all the way across until I get a whole row, and you just need one row. It's just for the start, and also you'll do it at the end when you're done for a finish. So you can see I've got my row now, and I just want to mention I'm using embroidery floss here, so it's the same stuff I use for friendship bracelets. So I'm using that for the weft, and then so that's the part where you see the design. And then for the warp, I'm using a little bit of a thicker string that's cotton, and it's just a little thicker than the embroidery floss. I think you could pretty much use anything you want as long as it's not yarn. You don't want anything stretchy. You just want something like cotton. And I did a little thicker so that you would see, you'd get like a thicker bracelet. So I think that looks nice. I tried a thinner warp and it didn't look as good. It looked a little flimsy. And here you can see I'm using a tapestry needle, so they're kind of big. They have a big eye, and you can see they're not sharp. Like so you aren't. It's easier to go in between the strings without piercing them or getting them caught because it's a dull needle. But I mean, you could use anything. I've used paper clips before. You could use like, I don't know, anything that like a wire maybe that you fold in half, whatever you have on hand. But a tapestry needle is really nice. So you can see I'm going over, under is the pattern. So it's just every other warp string you're going over and under, and that's how you create your design with the weaving. So it's really, really basic. It's like the most basic type of weaving. I believe this is called tapestry weaving. So yeah, that's basically what I'm doing. I'm pushing it up with my nail. You could also use the tip of your needle to kind of tighten up your strings, but I just basically use my thumbnail because it's easiest. Yeah, so that's how you get your design. You weave your warp, and then you can see I'm showing you how to do the diagonal now. So if you wanted it just to be solid, you just keep going across. But if you want it to get that diagonal shape, you kind of stop short a couple of strings before the edge. And you stop where you can kind of just see how the pattern starts developing. So, you know, just experiment, see how far, you know, how many strings over you need to go. If you mess up, just undo it. I think I'm doing like, you know, one string back each time, or maybe two, because of the way that the yarns, or that the string kind of ends up weaving and how it looks. So I've done both ways. I think I did one string over for my diagonal and my other bracelet, and I do two string over for this one when I stop short. But yeah, just play around and create your design, and just keep tapering the shape, and you'll see that you'll get a nice diagonal going. So I'm just starting at the start. You get like a half triangle, And you would basically just keep doing this until you get to the point. And then when you do the other side, I'll show you, but yeah, you start a new color and then you go all the way to the point and then all the way back again. So the very first triangle is a half triangle, and then you get a full triangle on all the rest, and then another half triangle to finish the bracelet. So here's a little tricky thing. When you're finishing a color, you know, just intuitively you just keep going back and forth until you are done, which is kind of what I just did to show you. Wait, am I there yet? Yeah, okay, so I'm almost at the end, and you'll see I'll go back, forth, and then I'll fix it and show you a little trick, because you don't want your last little bit of tail to just come out the side, and you also don't want it to kind of unravel. So here's the trick is I'm undoing what I just did to, like, because that was what you might do just intuitively. So undo that, and then you can see instead I'm gonna go over 2 instead of going over 1. And then I'm gonna come down through the middle, and I'm gonna kind of catch my thread. I'm gonna go like in between the bottom thread and the one up from there, so that it kind of catches itself and kind of locks itself off. And that's just a little trick. You don't like necessarily have to do it, but it makes a nicer finish, and it makes it easier to hide the tail later, and it doesn't unravel as you're working. So that's just a little tip. So by the way, this is a great way to use up your extra stock of, like, you know, leavings of leftover thread after you're done making friendship bracelets or other crafts. So, because you only really need a little bit for each color section. So here I'm starting a new color section. So you'll see I start over, I don't start from the edge. I start from the middle. I do start on the edge, but like, again, you don't want your tail to stick out the side, because then it's harder to hide that thread. So you want to kind of start from the interior of the bracelet going out, and then you can start weaving. And then here I'm going to pick up the thread after I've, you know, done my next row. And, you know, you're only doing the corner of that triangle here. So you're starting with just 1, and then you do 2, and then you do 3. And then you're going to kind of have the tail kind of go along with the warp string here, and you're going to weave over it so that it gets hidden as you're weaving. This is just nice because then you don't have to go back later and clean up your bracelet and try to weave in the threads or cut them off and be afraid that it's gonna show or unravel or something. So I just go and hide the tails along as I'm adding new colors and doing more weaving. So I just kind of like incorporate it in. I think I forget once in a while, and that's annoying, but mostly I try to take care of all the finishing as I go on these type of bracelets. So I'm not actually going to show you the entire triangle. Just gonna, I think you guys get it at this point. You just kind of go over, under, and you go one more thread over for the diagonal to get that shape, and you just keep weaving. And as far as the little tail, I think once you get like 3 or 4 rows, it's pretty safe. It's pretty secure in there. So I think at that point is when I usually cut them, because you know, you don't want to just keep going forever. It's gonna make your bracelet thicker. So it's just enough to kind of hide it and secure it, and then you clip it off real close, but you know, just be careful you're not cutting anything except for that little tail. You don't want to cut your warp, you don't want to cut your weft. And then you can just continue weaving, and it'll look very nice and clean and finished. Yeah, so you would just keep going all the way out to the edge, and then all the way back to make one of those triangular sections there. And that's how you do this. And the only other thing you really need to watch out for is your tension. So try to keep your warp threads all kind of the same tension, and try to keep your weft, the one you're weaving with, about the same. because it can kind of, if you do a little tighter and then a little looser, it can start to look really uneven. But basically that's just it. You just keep on weaving. And there's my cat, William. He was helping me with this little tutorial. Anyway, the bracelet's done now, and I finished one side. And I did a little, just a braided tie. And I'll show you how to do this finishing technique, just in case you don't know what it is I did there. So I've taken it, I've cut the warp. I cut it exactly at the halfway point so that I would have the same amount of length on each end of the warp strings. And then I have this little string left from when I started it, and I actually kind of want to undo this first little knot, just the first half of this knot, because I want it to do forward backward or backward forward when I'm going to be doing like a little tapered triangle, and I think it would look better if I had the knot go the other direction. So that's just what I'm doing here. I'm just fixing that. So now the knot's going in the other direction and it's ready to start the next row. So I have a full row, and then now I'm starting one string over and I'm doing a full row across. And I'm just doing 4 knots here, and then I'll do forward backward at the edge, 1 string shy of the end of the row, and then I'll do backward knots all the way across again. I'll show you the whole thing. I might as well. I took the video. So yeah, this is fun. This is only the second bracelet I've made this way. I mean, I've woven in the past. I actually have a textile design degree, or a fiber arts degree. And I used to do weaving all the time as far as like actual scarves and, blankets and rugs and things. But I haven't done any weaving in honestly like forever. So I thought this would be a really fun little simple way to like do some weaving. I mean, I do bracelets with the knotting technique a lot, but this is kind of fun, and everybody seemed really interested in these little woven bracelets, so that's why I'm doing this little quick tutorial, and I'm doing it on iMovie, so it's a little bit faster than doing like a full edited video on like the computer. I'm just doing this little video on my phone. Anyway, you can see that I've gotten all the way to the end almost. I'm doing my little knots across to kind of, I want to finish it in like a triangle shape. So you can see, don't do this last string. You want to take that out to the side, and so you don't like forget and knot onto it. So here's where you do the forward, and then you're going to do backward here to like change the direction, because you're going to go back the other way on the next row down. And I'm running out of string here, so you'll see that I'm kind of getting a little difficult at this point. I'm also like sitting on the floor with my phone sitting on the table above me. I don't know, it's like a whole awkward situation here. Anyway, but it looks good on video, right? So, yeah, I'm just going to do backward knots here and the next row down. So you're just doing 1 less knot every time until you get to the end. I fixed that. I added a little bit more thread, and now I've done more knots, or no, more rows, and I'm getting close to the point here. So you can see that I think that's a nice little finish. I'm sure there's other ways you could just go straight into some braids, or you could I don't know, just play around and see how you want to finish your bracelet. This is just, I'm showing you what I did, so that, because I know people are going to ask. So yeah, I think because I have an even amount of strings, the last isn't going to be like 1 knot, it's going to be 2, but that's perfectly fine. William, he's such a good helper. Anyway, so I'm just about done. Yeah, so this is just part of it. You're going to have to stay tuned for the next part, where I'm basically going to finish it the way you would a normal triangle end. So just one more moment and then we'll get there. Okay, here we go. So I'm done with the little section of the making the triangle here, and now I'm going to finish off the sides and gather in all the strings that are sticking out to the edge. So the way you do that is the way you would do a normal triangle end finish. I don't know if you're familiar with that. So you take the second string from the very edge and you do I think it's backward forward. Yeah, backward forward knots onto the one to the left of it. And then you're gonna, once you're done that, make sure you're doing nice tight tension here because you don't want it to be kind of loose. You want it to be nice and tight and secure. So yeah, so the next one you gather the two to the left and the one over, and then you use that one over to do backward forward knot onto the both strings. So I switched views here because it's just a little easier when I'm knotting onto my knee and not onto the pillow. Okay, so yeah, you just keep taking the next string over, and then knot to the left. You do backward and then forward, which creates this nice little edge and kind of gathers all the threads together. It's a really cool technique. I think I learned it from Masha Knots. She's got a great YouTube channel and an Instagram, so check her out. Yeah, so yeah, you just keep going. So see, I did a forward knot. I'm really making sure I keep it nice and tight. And then, wait, yeah, is it backward and then forward? Sorry, it's confusing. I kind of just do it by feel. So, yeah, I think it might actually be backward forward. So backward and then forward until you get finished with one side. And then you're gonna go ahead and do the other side as well. This is a little tricky because the warp threads that I used are thicker, so in retrospect maybe it would be nice if you just use the same embroidery floss for the warp. I'm not sure, I'll have to try it out. I like how it looks as far as how when you weave onto it, but you know, finishing it's a little difficult because this thread's pretty thick, so it makes a thicker tie and a little bit more challenging to finish the ends. So I'll get back to you on trying out embroidery floss for a warp. I've never tried that. So you can see I'm doing the same thing on the other side. I'm just doing the opposite, you know, direction as far as the knots. So if you did backward forward on one side, you do forward backward on the other. And you're just taking that next string over and just tying on to all the strings on the right. And then finishing it, going back the other way. Just so that you get a nice cleaned off edge there and you don't have the strings flying everywhere. So it's a little bit easier to see on friendship bracelets because they're different colors. It's a little hard to see because these are all the same color, but I hope that you're understanding, and feel free to message me if you're confused, or check out my other video, although my other video doesn't have this. My YouTube videos are a little bit different technique. They're not exactly this finishing technique. I need to do more videos. I've really been busy, and then like now I'm not busy because of this whole, you know, craziness in the world right now, but you know, just been kind of stressed out and trying to do other things, and so I don't know, so now I'm doing some crafts and it's nice to be sharing this with you guys. And yeah, so I do plan to do more videos in the future, especially if I do it this way. It's a little bit quicker and easier. Anyway, so you can see I've done both sides. And now I take both of those last strings that I was knotting with, and I knot them together just with a forward knot in the center. So I think that looks pretty nice. And now I'm just basically going to do a braid here. You could do any kind of tie that you like. I think twisted ties would be cute. Oh wait, yeah, forgot. I have to cut off this little piece that I used to do that last little triangle finish. And it's tied in there with the other knots, so it's okay. You can just cut it right off, or you could, you know, keep it and weave it into your tie. It's up to you guys. I just didn't want it in there, so I cut it off. So yeah, I'm gonna do a braid, but yeah, twisted ties might look nice. A fishtail braid might look nice. Yeah, any kind of tie you want. So at this point, just, you know, create the braid or a tie or whatever. So I'm just gonna do 4 strands. For each, and then do a 3-strand braid. So that's that. And here we go. That's the final bracelet. William's helping me again. He's so cute, I swear. Yeah, so that's the finished bracelet. You can see I did a couple other things in there. I have like a variegated thread, and I tried a couple of triangles where I did one row of each of a color alternated with another. That's the back there for you if you're curious what it looks like. It doesn't look quite as nice as the front, but it doesn't look too bad since I did the finishing all along. And here's the bracelet, how it looks on my wrist. So yeah, if you have any questions, let me know, but I hope this was a nice little tutorial for you guys to see how I did it, because I know you were asking. All right, see you guys later.